What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by my co host, Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. Back for another big episode talking about. We haven't had a match lately, but we've had a lot of developments. The sanctions were finally handed down from both the League's Cup Committee and MLS after that ugly post game incident that happened between Inter Miami and the Seattle Sounders that involved the spitting incident, as it's being known now, by Luis Suarez, which led to some suspensions. We'll discuss that, how many games Suarez will indeed miss because of what happened. And we'll talk a little bit about were they fair? Were the penalties, did the penalty justify the crime? And we'll review Lionel Messi's last World Cup qualifier in Argentina. And we actually have some quotes from Messi himself, believe it or not. The game was very important to him. We know he's gearing up for one last run, wearing the traditional colors, not the pink and black, but the white and blue, as he's getting ready for one run with his home country, one final run in the World Cup next year. We'll look ahead to Miami's return to MLS action this Saturday at Charlotte. A quick turnaround, too. Two pivotal MLS games coming up for the team after this long break. They got Charlotte on the road, and then that rematch against those Sounders that got a little ugly at the end, as we said before, on Tuesday night, not Wednesday night, not Saturday night, on a Tuesday night next week. But let's start with the verdict here from MLS, Michelle. Take us through it. We know Luis Suarez will miss the next 3 MLS games because of it.
Yeah, the total ban for Luis Suarez is 9 games. It's 3 MLS games. So, first, the Leagues Cup announced their decisions on Friday. So, in that instance, which will be served at next year's Leagues Cup, assuming that Luis Suarez is even still on this team because he has not signed for next year for this team. So it could be an empty penalty in that sense because it's 6 games of Leagues Cup in 2026. The whole tournament is 6 games, basically. He would pretty much miss next year's Leagues Cup. Okay. So he got 6 games. Toto Aviles got 3 games from Leagues Cup for violent play, punching and so on. So he got he got 3 games for next year's Leagues Cup. Sergio Busquets, 2 games for next year's Leagues Cup. And then the character that we did not talk about last week, who ended up actually getting as severe penalties pretty much as Luis Suarez, is and brace yourself for this, the Seattle Sounders mental performance coach, the mental performance advisor, okay, who is a former player in MLS, played for San Jose, I believe, and played in Columbus. He is Stephen Lenhart, a former MLS player who just was hired this year by the Seattle Sounders to help the players with mental performance. He was in the middle of all the fracas. He was throwing punches, from what I understand, throwing multiple punches at Inter Miami players. And he got 5 games from Leagues Cup. But there's more.
He's banned, right?
MLS announced and fines and fines. They all got fined by Leagues Cup. So all 4, Luis Suarez 6 games for Leagues Cup, Toto Aviles 3 games, Sergio Busquets 2 games. Again, Sergio Busquets has not signed yet for next year, but he gets 2 games if he plays next year. And then this Stephen Lenhart got 5 games. Now, MLS came down on Monday with their additional sanctions. So this is immediate right now. Luis Suarez will miss the next 3 MLS games. So he will miss the game this Saturday at Charlotte. He will miss the rematch against Seattle. And then he will miss the following game after that, which I believe is, I'm not sure if it's DC maybe. 3 games, the next 3 games. Busquets didn't get anything from MLS. Toto Aviles did not get anything from MLS. Stephen Lenhart, the Seattle Sounders, I repeat, the mental performance advisor, he is suspended for the rest of the year. He got his game credentials revoked for the remainder of the season and the postseason. So he will not be allowed to be anywhere on the field or near the players. He's allowed to be in the stadium as a fan, but he's not allowed to be in the tunnel, the locker room, anywhere on the field for the remainder of the season. And the Seattle Sounders club was also fined for misappropriation of credentials. Apparently, this guy maybe was not supposed to be on the field, and maybe some other people, I don't know, but I think this guy was not supposed to be on the field in the first place. Anyway, the club itself, the Sounders, got fined for misappropriation of credentials, of game day credentials. So those are the penalties that went down. In total, Suarez is banned for 9 games, 3 MLS games, and 6 Leagues Cup games if he's around next year to play in the Leagues Cup games. And then, Suarez, Busquets, like we said, 2 games, Toto Aviles, 3 games, next year's Leagues Cup. So what do you think? Does the punishment fit the crime? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the suspensions, it had to be something that wasn't just a little slap on the wrist. I mean, they gave him. I mean, think about it. You lose Suarez for 3 games in a crucial final stretch run that they're about to embark
3
on
out of
right
9.
here.
So
3 out of 9.
1/3.
So
Yeah,
1/3.
1/3 of the games.
And this first third where he's going to miss the rematch coming up on Tuesday too. So that's, again, consequential for sure for a team that's fighting right now to move up in the standings and so on and so forth. So you lose Suarez at a time where Suarez had finally regained his form a bit and started to be, to end up on the score sheet a little more often than he had been for a while after he broke that long drought that he had been on. And so it's unfortunate. It's a bit of a hit. And the other guys, the penalties for next year for the Leagues Cup, we talked about it, how hard it is once the tournament's over for anything to really stick, because these guys, some of them, like you said, Suarez may not be here, Busquets, we don't know. So could be empty after all of that. But the MLS part of it is the one that hurts because now you lose these guys for three matches is 3 matches. I mean, that's the cushion. If you think about it, remember we keep talking about those 3 games in hand. He's not going to be there for that.
4 games.
Well, now 4 games because of the break. But
they have 4 games in hand. But
a big chunk of that.
Yeah, and we're going to go into it a little more, but let's not forget that this first game Saturday against Charlotte, for anyone who hasn't been paying attention lately, Charlotte is in 3rd place now. Charlotte has gone 8 games unbeaten. They're on an amazing streak. It's going to be in Charlotte. They have a big stadium. It's going to be in Charlotte, and they are in 3rd place. They're ahead of Miami right now. So the next 2 games, Charlotte and Seattle, are both against very formidable opponents. They're not going to have Luis Suarez. We'll talk about that later. Who might they put in those positions? What does it mean to not have Suarez? But yeah, I mean, I think the punishments, I think it's warranted. I do think the fact that Luis came out with a very well-written, heartfelt apology on Thursday night. All of a sudden on Thursday night, he came out with this apology. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if this will help soften the blow a little bit, that he's the only person who came out with any kind of apology at that point. There had been silence for 4 days. And that's one of the things we talked about last episode, that no one had said anything. The club hadn't said anything. He hadn't said anything. Busquets, nobody. It was silence, crickets for 4 days. And then Luis Suarez broke his silence Thursday evening. He put out a really long statement that said that he was embarrassed, that he was ashamed. This is not the image he wants his children to see, that they suffered, that his children and his family suffered by his behavior, that his club, his teammates, all of the fans suffered by his behavior, and that he was deeply remorseful and asked for apology. He was, asking for forgiveness. He was apologizing and asking for forgiveness on Thursday night. And, maybe that also helps with the MLS giving 3 instead of more than 3. And I think 3, maybe they figured, well, he already got 6 from Leagues Cup. We'll add 3 more. That makes it 9 altogether. So I don't have any problem with the ban. I do think it's interesting the Seattle Sounders the former player, not for the Sounders, but former MLS player, Steven Leonard, who's supposed to be there providing mental performance
Go figure.
advising for the players was the only the only person on the whole Seattle Sounders roster staff who gets in big trouble, and he's the guy who's supposed to be advising the players on how to
Ironic.
behave.
Yeah, very ironic.
That was very ironic. Very, very ironic. Yes.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, yes, Charlotte in third place. Miami now. Miami has fallen to sixth because of the break for now. Still, like you said, 4 games in hand on the top 4, 3 games in hand on Orlando, which is 1 point ahead of them now in 5th place. But not a lot of room for error. Miami slipping. 7 is that in between point between a play-in and just being in the playoffs. And the Columbus Crew have fallen a bit. They're now tied with Inter Miami for 6th place, even though Miami's got the nod on wins right now. But if you look at it, not much of a cushion anymore to stay afloat. But they still have a chance.
A pretty big gap. Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia's in first place with 57 points. Well, Miami has 46. So Miami's 11 points behind the leader, but still in the mix, obviously, to be in the playoffs. But they are in 6th place now. And like you said, 7th is the cutoff for earning an automatic bid. So, they're kind of teetering on the, danger zone there.
But for the,
so they have to be very careful. Yes,
for the
home field advantage, top 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, top 4, and then if you're being really ambitious that you still want that number 1 spot, they'd have to win all 4. They'd have to win all 4 of those. They basically are putting you'd have to win out almost of all these 9 games that are left, because they're 11. They're now 11 back of Philly, and if you want to talk about that 4-game cushion, that's 12 points. They have to win them all. So at this point, you're looking at maybe realistically, unless they go on a tremendous run that they win 8 out of 9 or something like that, you're looking at least, can they at least jump into that top 4 quadrant and maybe, like you said, get home field at least for the first round or 2. So,
but they've not. It's not easy. They have not. Last year's team was in first place going in, had the supporter shield. Again, they ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs. So as we know, in American sports, you don't have to be the top qualifier. You can get, as long as once you get in the playoffs, you throw everything else out the window and you start over.
I mean, so, for all the talk of this, the MLS is not like the rest of the world's leagues.
It helps in this case for Miami.
It's a good thing in this case, because they're not. They'd be looking. They'd be pretty SOL right now if it was like the Premier League or Italy or anybody where you have to be. All that counts is getting that number 1 spot and getting that trophy, and that's it. Although you also they'd be fighting for promotion, I guess, or avoiding or getting into the Champions League and so forth at that point. Right. But still, it's a similar.
They made it difficult for themselves. A little difficult, yeah.
In terms of wanting to get that top 4, they're familiar with that aspect of it. So that at least could probably at least prepare them for this stretch run. But on the flip side, on a more positive note, special night for Lionel Messi, as we said before. Far away from all the chaos and the spitting and the penalties and the suspensions. 2 goals against Venezuela in his World Cup qualifier finale. Argentina had already clinched, as we know, but still, it was great for the Argentine fans and the fans around the world. I'm sure we're happy to see Messi pull this off. Let's hear what do you have to say. Let's not wait any further. We rarely get a Messi clip.
This is, we have not had a chance to talk to him in more than 2 years now, the local media. He did speak after the Orlando City game. He gave 3-minute interview to Apple postgame and touched on a few things about the team, about that upcoming game in Argentina. So I figured let's hear from Messi. Let's see what he had to say.
Y por supuesto que el jugador del partido no podía ser otro que de GOAT. Leo, y te pregunto, porque venías de una lesión, el mismo presidente Jorge Mas decía que no estabas al 100%, que todavía estabas lesionado. ¿Cómo lo haces con ese doblete el día de hoy?
No, bueno, quería estar desde que volví con Galaxy y sentí una molestia ahí, no me sentía cómodo. Me preparé para estar en este partido porque sabía lo importante que era el rival, un rival muy complicado, que este año no había ganado los 2 partidos que nos enfrentábamos. Y bueno, la verdad que el primer tiempo me sentía un poquito con miedo todavía, pero en el segundo me solté un poco más.
¿Y te sientes bien ahora?
Sí, por suerte sí, terminé bien, cansado, igual que todo el equipo. Mucho calor, mucha humedad, lo mismo de siempre, pero feliz por haber pasado a la final.
La Leagues Cup es un torneo especial para ti porque debutaste en ese mes espectacular donde fuiste goleador del torneo. ¿Cómo vives pasar otra vez a esta final de Leagues Cup 2025?
No, bueno, lo dije en el primer partido, ¿no? Este es un grupo que compite, lo habíamos hecho en la Coca Champions, donde nos tocó quedar afuera con Vancouver en una semifinal. Esta League Cup lo dijimos al principio que la íbamos a pelear. Tuve la mala suerte de perderme varios partidos. El grupo hizo un sacrificio muy grande. Jugamos contra rivales muy importantes, muy buenos. Como el anterior contra Tigre, que es un gran equipo, uno de los mejores de México, tiene jugadores individuales muy buenos, una gran plantilla. Bueno, nosotros acá de locales, verdad que nos hacemos fuertes. Y bueno, ahora nos toca ir a jugar de visitante, sea cual sea el rival, pero estamos en la final.
¿Seattle o LA?
Cualquiera, ¿no? Es una final y va a ser muy difícil, aparte jugamos de visitante. Ojalá sea un gran espectáculo, una gran final.
Leo, tú has jugado muchos clásicos en tu carrera, pero ¿qué significa sacarse la espinita de vencerle a Orlando City después de que cayeron goleados 3-0 y 4-1?
Bueno, la verdad que especial, ¿no? Siempre especial jugar un clásico y como dije anteriormente, Orlando es un gran rival que tiene jugadores muy buenos, que es un equipo muy bien trabajado, donde tiene un técnico que ya viene desde hace muchos años trabajando de una misma manera, con un mismo grupo. Y bueno, la verdad que era una pequeña revancha para nosotros por haber perdido estos dos partidos en Liga y bueno, tuve la suerte de jugar la otra vez en League Cup contra Orlando, también poder ganar y hoy otra vez dejarlo afuera, así que es especial.
Leo, por último te tengo que preguntar, porque Argentina juega contra Venezuela en septiembre y por ahí se dice y se vive, la gente lo vive en que es tu último partido con Argentina en eliminatorias en Buenos Aires. ¿Tú lo estás viviendo de esa manera?
Sí, va a ser especial, va a ser un partido muy especial para mí porque es el último de eliminatoria. No sé si después habrá amistoso o más partidos, pero sí que es un partido muy especial donde por eso me va a acompañar mi familia, mi mujer, mis hijos, mis padres, mis hermanos y todo lo que pueda, también por parte de mi mujer, toda la familia y lo vamos a vivir de esa manera. Después ya te digo, no sé qué pasará, pero vamos con esa intención.
Gracias, Leo. Felicidades.
Gracias, chao, gracias.
The Jorge Mas
Right,
hug
there you
there at
have
the
it.
end.
A little a Moss hug. They need to get that contract signed. Lots of hugging, but they need to get some ink on that paper.
That's
We're
right.
now in September. That was supposed to happen in June and then July and
Mhm.
then August, and here we are in September. For those who didn't get to see the video and the subtitles, Leo Messi talks about feeling fit. He said that he feels good, that he was sorry that he had to miss those couple of games, but that he was feeling fit, after that Orlando game. He talked about how this is a team that always competes. And he was talking about how even when he was out for the couple of games, that the rest of the team really stepped up, sacrificed, played very well, and that he was very happy to get to the Leagues Cup final. Of course, we know what happened in the Leagues Cup final, 3-0 loss to Seattle. That is not what he had in mind at that moment of that interview, of course. And then he talked about how good it felt to beat Orlando. He said it was a revenge match. He agreed that it was a revenge match after losing to them 2 times in the season. And then he went on to talk about the match that just happened the other day, his final World Cup qualifying match in Argentina, because we and he are assuming that in 4 years' time, when the next World Cup cycle comes around, he probably will not be playing in 4 years' time for the 2030 World Cup. But he said that it's very special for him to be there. There may be friendlies after exhibition matches, but as far as a World Cup qualifier, this is, likely the last one. So he had his family there, his kids, his wife's family, his siblings, his parents. Everybody was there for that moment. It was very emotional for any of you who saw it on TV. He was emotional. He teared up. He had his kids out there with him. Everybody, all the Argentine fans were very excited. And then afterward, he spoke, and a lot has been made, when he said, I don't even know. We don't, we're going to see how I'm feeling next year for the World Cup and this and that. He obviously wants to play in the next World Cup. he's going to see how he's feeling because of his age. He goes day by day, week by week. And he said, one of the things he said is, when I'm playing well, I love to play. When I feel good, when I feel fit and I feel healthy, I still love to play. When I don't, then it's not fun for him.
Right.
And, we all know how competitive he is. So he doesn't want to predict that, like, next June, automatically say, I'm going to be playing in the World Cup, because he does it based on how he feels. He doesn't want to hurt the team, obviously, and he doesn't want to play if he's not fit. But if he's fit, he is going to be with Argentina. I have no doubt that is his goal. That's what he would love to do in June and July of 26. And it would be here in the United States, which is his new home now. So it would make perfect sense for him to ride out off into the sunset after trying to defend the World Cup title.
What does Mascherano always say? Si Leo puede, Leo va a jugar, right?
Yeah, if he can, he's going to play. If he can, he's going to play. There's no question he's going to play. And Argentina, it's very difficult to repeat as World Cup champions, but Argentina did finish qualifying in first place in Argentina, in South America, in CONMEBOL,
with a big cushion,
way ahead
of everybody.
Over Brazil. So the six that advanced automatically, who have already qualified from South America, are Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Ecuador, Colombia, and Paraguay. Those six are in. They are in the World Cup. If you want to buy your tickets, the ticket sales go on sale September 10th, Wednesday.
And so, clear in too. I'm looking at the standings, and the clear Paraguay 7 points drop off after that. So it was the clear six that made it out of South America.
The clear six that qualified. So all the fans of those countries can safely buy tickets starting on September 10th. There's a visa pre-sale and then other things. I have a whole story at MiamiHerald.com that gives step-by-step details of how to get World Cup tickets, where you have to register, what you have to do, what the deadlines are, how it's going to work, what the limits are and how many tickets you can get, what the prices are. They start at 60. When it opens up, the group stage starts at 60. Of course, it fluctuates based on demand, so that number could go up. But then the two teams from South America battling for a playoff spot to get into the World Cup still, a play-in spot, are Venezuela and Bolivia. So Venezuela, Bolivia battling for that final. The seventh place team in South America goes into a playoff with the team from another region, I think Oceania or somewhere, and they then compete for the next spot, one more spot for the World Cup. But the six that are in are Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Ecuador, Colombia, and Paraguay, and of course, United States, Mexico, and Canada.
And it's the expanded field now. That's why so many more, because remember, it used to be the top five that would get in, and now it's more because of the expanded field overall in the World Cup. So
yes, it's going to be the biggest World Cup ever with the most teams. And we will say that the United States, they should be feeling very fortunate that they have an automatic bid, because they are not playing very well right now. There's a lot of concern now. Mauricio Pochettino, Argentine coach who had been coaching in England, everyone was very excited. He's being paid $6 million a year or whatever. And he was signed last winter. Everyone was very excited. Greg Berhalter lost his job. They bring in this, respected, highly respected coach from Argentina who's been Premier League coach. And under Pochettino, they played 17 games. They have 10 wins and 7 losses, but the teams they've beaten are Saudi Arabia, Haiti, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago, Venezuela, Jamaica, and Panama. They have wins over those under him, but they have lost to Mexico twice, Switzerland, South Korea, Turkey, Canada, Jamaica, and one game against Panama. So games of note, they have lost all 5 games against top 35 teams in the FIFA rankings. They have not beaten a team in the top 35 rankings for FIFA. So the team is not doing what everybody expected.
If that was an NCAA tournament resume, that sounds like one of those bubble teams that's on the outside looking in, not like a lot of damaging losses column in there.
Yes.
They've always put key wins and damaging losses.
Bad losses.
There's a few more damaging losses there than key wins. would think, on that resume. But yeah, it's disappointing because there was a lot of hope. There's a lot. I mean, there still is, but going into the tournament itself, let's see what happens. But yeah, very fortunate for sure that they had that automatic bid, being one of the host countries, because if not, we'd be looking at another 4 years of when is this going to happen? When, all the questions.
That's what everyone keeps asking. When is the U.S. going to be able to field a team that's competitive? And we're going to hear, we got clips from the coach, and we got a clip from Chris Richards talking about this, this team, about the loss to South Korea. They're going to play Japan on Tuesday night. And so, it's a team there's a lot of questions about this team right now. Pochettino, he says that he's not worried. He says this is a long process. What matters is what they do during the World Cup. Let's hear from him, a quick clip from him.
Look, we start in October last season, and we start in October. We need not too much time. Normally, process start to work after 3.5 years, if you see. In less than 1 year, I think that process start to work. Maybe not in result, but maybe tomorrow start to work in result. And maybe in October start to work not only in the process that we work, but also in result. No worries, we have a plan. We are no worries. We are no worries about nothing. Only we stick with the plan. We are with the player. We are very, very strong group now. People working in the federation, everyone. It's only when people talk, you need to think a little bit. That always can be another way to assess and to analyze the thing. It's not only being negative. Shows are shows, but that sport with a World Cup in front, if we are patriot and we feel that, I think we need to be critic is one thing, because I like the critic. When you say things that are right, but when it's critic for critics, I think it's not damaging me, are damaging your country and damaging your player, that on the end, we need to be all in behind them to provide the best platform to perform.
Okay, so I have a few things to say about that, and then Andre, I'm curious what you have to say. He says, we have no worries. We have a plan. We're not worried about anything. He talks a lot. When you listen to his press conferences, he talks a lot about the process and that they have a plan.
Yeah.
We talk about the process and we have a plan. People want to see wins. People want to see wins. And when he talks about, a lot of times people are too negative and, and maybe, the results will come with the process. As long as we trust the process, the results will come, and all those things. Those are things that a lot of times coaches that are in a losing streak say those things.
Right.
And it's a process. We have to trust the process. And then, the wins will come. The wins will come if we trust the plan, if we trust the process. Right now, there seems to be a lot of division. There's the players who are based in Europe. There's the players who are based in MLS. He definitely has not settled. Forget about settling on a starting lineup. I know that that's a long way away, but, just settling on a roster of players that these are basically the 20 players that are going to be there, game in and game out. He's still experimenting, okay?
Right.
It's been a year. He's still in an experimental phase with all these different players. And I think that's the concern too. And when he talks about don't be critical, that's not the way to be. In the countries of the world, including Argentina, which I'm sure he knows very well, the fans and the media are highly critical, way more critical in the United States. I would say the biggest problem in this country with the U.S. national team and the fans is indifference.
Right.
I think what's more concerning is that not that many people are talking about the U.S. national team.
Yeah.
And when their games are played, the South Korea game in New Jersey the other night, the majority of the fans seemed to be from the Korean team. Okay.
Right.
They were there to see the Korean team. The U.S. fans in this country, with the World Cup coming up, they're excited about the World Cup and they're excited to see all the top teams in the world. I'm not hearing enough buzz about Team USA. What do you think about that? And then we're going to hear from, go ahead.
Look, because I mean, we this isn't anything surprising. We know that when it comes to support of the USA soccer team. There's parts of this country that you find more fans than others. And it's kind of a niche in most places to root for and all that. And guess what started this week? The NFL. Guess what's still coming up pretty soon? The NBA. You know, baseball's going on. College football's going on. You go to Argentina, it's united. It's united in their support for their team. That is it. That is the pinnacle. That is the ultimate. Here,
yeah, those 23 players. Yeah, those 23 players are the most famous
behind all these other, and that's, you know, but no one's going to fix that overnight. That's the way it is here. I mean, in terms of the process,
people
like
will care when the World Cup comes. Yeah, when the World Cup comes, the Americans are going to tune in when the World Cup's okay. How good is our team? You know, a few weeks before,
who is our team?
For all these stadiums.
Let's be honest.
Who is our team? Who
most
are these
people,
guys?
the average person is going to be like,
Christian
Pulisic and a couple others, and that's it. Right. They're not going to know the 20th player. They're not going to know the 11th player in the starting 11. They, you know, in general. Now, those hardcore, the patches that I'm talking about do. The ones that follow MLS day in and day out, the ones that follow international soccer. And there are a lot of them. I'm not saying there isn't.
Yes.
But it's
not like other countries where these 23, in most of the world, the 23 players on the national team are the most famous athletes in their country, period. They are the ones that are wearing that badge and carrying that country's ego on their shoulders. Every country in the world, their national soccer team.
Yeah.
And here, Christian Pulisic is not
LeBron. He's not up Patrick there with Mahomes. He's not, you know what I mean? Like, you name it, all the famous. Hell, he's not even, he's not, you know, he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Caitlin Clark. He's not any of the, like, there are recognizable names.
Right.
And it's not, you know what I mean? So from that perspective, now if you want to go narrow the focus to the team itself.
Fans, of course. Oh, and the team itself.
The team itself. Pochettino's, yes, of course he's saying all those things. You have to. What's he going to? What do the fans want? To come out and say, "Yeah, we suck. We don't know what we're doing. You know, we're not prepared for the world." No, he's not going to say that. He's trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure it out. But like you said, I think you hit a point. The continuity part. That's the whole point of this, right? Like, well, I mean, to qualify, but in this case, when you're already in, it's figuring out what's the best formula to actually be competitive and have a shot at doing something next year in this thing. And they can't seem right now. It seems like he's still moving the pieces around, and it's interesting because, like you said, there's some players that are homegrown and some that are, you know, the international players. And Berhalter leaned a little more into the MLS homegrown guys, even if they had experience playing abroad. But those are guys from here. Now it's interesting seeing that mix kind of maybe change a little bit. I mean, yes, does it take 3.5 years? Yeah, but these days, no one wants to wait 3.5 months, let alone 3.5 years. And that's the problem that they're facing. Now, realistically, it probably could take 3.5 years and we won't, and obviously, unless you're inside, we don't know, if they are actually internally moving in the right direction. They've shown little glimpses, but they've also shown a lot of the issues too. Like, you know, I mean, I know people were upset. They lost to Mexico. They didn't win the Gold Cup because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one thing I've thought about too is the fact that they're already in the World Cup. In a way, does that make the players, is there less urgency for the players of the host team because they don't have to go through a qualifying cycle? Whereas we just saw these games in South America, and everywhere in the world, in Europe and in Asia and Africa, everywhere, there is pressure. They are trying to get into the World Cup. Every one of those players, wants to be at peak form because they want their team to qualify for the World Cup and they want to be on the World Cup roster. In this case, the U.S. is already in. So, you know, the games that they're playing are not games that matter really the way they do in a World Cup qualifying cycle. When you are trying to qualify for a World Cup, that's when you really have to be at your best. And then, of course, during the World Cup. So we'll see what happens. Let's hear real quick from Chris Richards before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, teams like Korea and Japan, they tend to be a bit more patient. I think when you think about CONCACAF teams, maybe you think of them being a bit more rash or being a bit the games being a bit more hectic. And I think when we play these kinds of teams, maybe they're playing chess and we're playing checkers. They're waiting they're waiting for our mistake to score or to capitalize on our mistakes. And that's kind of what happened the other night. So. It's a learning experience, and I think that's the number one thing from this camp is that we're learning to play against different types of opponents, and tomorrow night is just a chance to execute what we learned from the last game.
How would you describe what the pressure is like at this point in the cycle getting ready for a World Cup, especially a World Cup on home soil?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a lot of added pressure. I think we give ourselves pressure because of us wearing the crest, and I think there's always that pressure. But, it's September. We have almost a year to go. I mean, of course, we want to win as many games as possible leading up to the World Cup. So, I mean, again, I think, even though we did lose the other night, I think it just takes one win and then another win to gain this momentum. So, we have some time to right our wrongs, and I think that's what we're going to do. Yeah, I mean, I think historically, when you think about the Japanese team, you always think of kind of an Asian powerhouse. I played with Daichi Kamada at Crystal Palace, and he's we've been speaking about it ever since we saw it on the schedule that it's going to be a good game. And me personally, I want to win because then I can talk crap in the locker room. But regardless, when you think of Japan, you think of a well-disciplined team, but also a team that's very effective and a team that's very dangerous. So hopefully we can play a good game tomorrow night and win.
And how do you feel that the World Cup will take place in your home country?
Yeah, very exciting. I think this is a dream come true. As a kid, you always dreamed of playing in a World Cup, but whenever we got the bid for it to be on U.S. soil, I think it just made it 10 times better. So there was a lot of pride in it, but again, a lot of added pressure, but something that we fully take head on.
Thanks, Chris.
Cool.
Let's say your name one more time.
All right, Chris Richards. Nice to hear from, I thought it would be good to hear from some U.S. national team player, and he's always good. He's always a good interview. He's a guy, he is one of the European-based, one of the England-based players, Crystal Palace since 2022. Before that, he played in Germany with Bayern Munich and Hoffenheim. So he's a player who has been, making his living overseas, but still is a big part of the U.S. national team pool. And we'll see. Time will tell. It's only September. Yeah. It's only September. Don't panic just yet.
No, and it's a good point what you said about these games. You're not eliminated if you lose. There's not that kind of pressure on them. But I'm looking at their schedule now, and as of this podcast, it'll have happened the night before when everyone's watching and hearing this. They'll have played Japan. Japan's in it. The next two are in October. They play Australia and they play Ecuador. They're both in it. So you're now measuring yourself a little bit against who you may face down the road or the type of caliber teams that are going to be in the World Cup. So it says something. It has value. It's not they're not just friendlies. It has some value in the sense of measuring yourself against the kind of competition that you're going to face next year. Granted, these teams are still going to round into form over the next year. They're not exactly now where they are by then, but it's a gauge. It's a definite something that you can take from it. So yeah, you can't just. I don't think you asked me a while back about Pochettino. I don't think you can totally just say, "Oh, everything's fine, everything's peachy." No. There is I don't totally knock him. There is a process to this. And yes, they have people, I get it. He's hoping for patience. And that's granted to a point. But yes, there's also a little bit of got to see something.
They need to beat somebody. They need to beat. Yeah. They need to beat a World Cup caliber team because they are going to be playing in the World Cup in 9 months from now. Right. 9 months. We're inside a year. Yep. So they need to beat some teams that are World Cup qualified teams. And like you said, teams like South Korea, Japan, Ecuador, these teams coming up, this is going to be a very good gauge. It'll be very interesting to see. We'll check back in. Mm-hmm. Let's check back in. Periodically we'll check back in, even though it's an Inter Miami podcast. We'll check in with World Cup because the World Cup is the World Cup.
We'll balance it out a little bit. Assuming Inter Miami doesn't collapse if they do get in the playoffs as they're expected to. That'll be right around that time when they're playing those teams like Ecuador and Australia. Be right around the time of the MLS playoffs. So we'll do a little balancing act there on future episodes for sure. So,
Yep.
But let's look ahead now. We'll wrap this up by looking at what's coming up. That quick little twofer coming up over the span of 4 days, Michelle. The trip to Charlotte, and then a quick turnaround for that highly anticipated rematch with the Sounders at home. And like we said before, this
buckle
team,
your seatbelts,
yeah,
put on a helmet, wear a helmet to that game, and buckle your seatbelts.
Yep.
But first, I just want to repeat, I looked it up now. Charlotte has won 8 games in a row.
Yeah.
They have won 8 games in a row and moved into 3rd place. They were not in the conversation earlier on this summer. They are now very much in the conversation. They have a Pep Beal. They have Zaha. They have some players who are very dangerous. They're going to be at home. Miami will not have Luis Suarez. Some people who have been critical of Suarez maybe think that that's not a big deal. But also Fafa, who may have been playing and starting, and he was injured. He came out with some sort of injury in the Haiti game. He was playing for Haiti against Honduras, and around the 80th minute last week, he asked to come out with some kind of injury. We don't know yet. We're going to know later this week whether that was something mild. Inter Miami fans will hope it was something mild, but he did come out of the Haiti game injured. So it's unknown if he'll be available, to play against Charlotte.
Yeah.
And what they could do is move Allende. Also, they signed this Matteo Silvetti, 19-year-old kid from Argentina that, Mascherano seems high on him. He kept talking about how smart he is, that he coached him on the Argentine under-20 team and so on and so forth. We have not seen this kid play. I don't know if he's going to be game ready, 19-year-old kid who just came in, but they don't have a lot of options to replace Luis Suarez as a true number 9. Obando has not done anything and has been injured. Fafa, I don't know. Questionable. Maybe be healthy, and that would be an option. This kid, Silvetti, but Miami will not have Luis Suarez. And while some people complain about him a lot, like you mentioned, in recent games, he has provided a lot of assists, and he is actually one of the assist leaders in the league. He's had a very good season as far as assists go. So they will not have that service. They will not have that experience on the field for the next 3 games.
Yeah. And for those of you that recall, it seems like months, so many months ago, seems like 100 years ago, the first time these two played was that one of the more resilient wins for this team this season was back in March, the game that Ustari got red carded, and Miami still found a way with Rocco Rios Novo in goal to win 1-0 over Charlotte. That was the first meeting at Chase Stadium. Now the second game of the series in Charlotte this weekend. So they're going to have to come up with some kind of resilience if they're missing, especially if Fafa's out. They're already missing Suarez. But every point to be had. No, barely any.
And then that Seattle rematch.
Seattle, yeah.
And then that Seattle rematch. I mean,
yeah.
These are 2 really tough games coming up. By the time we talk next week, we will have a lot to talk about how they did in these 2 games.
The Seattle game alone will I'm sure, provide a lot of material. Let alone those 2.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
Yeah, and then if you peek over those 2, we've talked ad nauseum about the busy schedule of this team, and because of the fact that so many tournaments interrupted their MLS league play, we're going again every 3-4 days for a while. After those 2, the following Saturday, a few days later, they have DC United at home. Then the 24th, they're at New York City FC. Toronto a few days after that. Chicago, a game that got postponed because of conflicts with the League Cup.
The middle of the week on a Tuesday night.
They're not on a week. The next, let me count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next 7 games are all in that 2 per week
condensed
schedule. Yeah, they don't get the week-long breaks till right at the end of the MLS schedule, which will be when they get after they play New England. The last 2 they host Atlanta, and they go to Nashville, that's when they'll have a week-long break in between those two, right before
But
the
in other words,
playoffs.
they're only going to have 2 or 3 days to prepare for each of these next 6 opponents and 7. And this is critical. This is the critical time of the season. And they won't have Luis Suarez. So it's going to be interesting. Again, everybody, buckle your seatbelts, make yourself a big bucket of popcorn, and let's see what happens.
Get your mate ready if you're
Get your mate ready.
if you drink that. So we'll be back next week. We'll be talking a little bit more about those 2 games. I'm sure, like I said, I think the Seattle one alone is popcorn material for sure. So until then, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Remember to catch us on YouTube, MiamiHerald.com, or listen to us on all your favorite podcatchers. Until then, thank you for watching Inside Inter Miami. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you next week.